Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome to The Culture Hack. I'm your host, Adam Colazetti, and I'm super excited because for only the second time, we are actually here in studio. We've taken the production up to 11 today, and who better to have on with me today than Rob Stewart and Jason Matthison. They are the co-founders of Intactix. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Jason, tell me, what is Intactix?
Intactix, well, we are the safety culture people.
Okay.
We've been around for 22 years trying to solve a very big problem that exists and what is safety culture.
Okay.
And we've been able to turn that into a user-friendly product that drives remarkable results.
Okay, interesting. So let's maybe start from there. So what is safety culture? Rob, let's start there. What is safety culture?
Well, we've come up with an operational definition of safety culture, but it's one of those questions. I mean, there's a book out there right now called, the first rule of safety culture is don't talk about safety culture. Right. Everybody's struggling with this. Even amongst, my peers, academics, there's 81 original definitions of safety culture. And
81?
81, wow. 81. And the joke, Adam, is the only thing that they can agree upon is to disagree. So that's been our journey across, as Jason says, 22 years, is coming up with a definition that actually allows us to drive towards that. So the academic way of looking at this is it's the complex social technical interactions that dictate or govern how we do things around here.
Okay.
So that's a mouthful, but it's really coming to understand how that works. And it's not that complicated, actually. No. It's about going back to fundamentals. It's about high reliability organization performance.
The non-science definition is how well you find risk, how well you investigate the risk, and how well you eliminate the serious stuff that can harm people, property, and the environment.
Right, okay. And when we're talking about culture, we're not talking about, processes and paperwork and stuff like that is often associated, or we try and place on top of safety to try and mitigate these things. Is that correct?
Well, no, it's more complicated than that. It does involve the technical side, which is the paperwork and the processes and the tools and the equipment. And that's what safety tends to measure, is that little bit in there. And they measure it over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. But they will also measure through cultural surveys and observations and focus groups. They'll measure what we call the social element of it, which is really the attitudes and the normative behaviors, the beliefs that are around safety. Now what happens is those two things coming together to shape the behaviors of people throughout the organization, sometimes in ways that we really don't want to have happen with it. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating how that all works.
So in typical safety programs that I've been a part of, that I've seen, we talk about leading indicators, right? We talk about near misses, things of that nature. But in talking with you guys, you're saying that doesn't always tell the whole story. So
one of those stories. So one of those things we call like card counting exercises. The culture around compliance so far has been report potential hazards, observation cards, hazard IDs, and so people will report them. But most of the information that's going into those reports is there's paint chipping off the wall, there's dew on the steps, stuff that's just going. It has nothing to do with risk.
Right.
And the reason why, if you're now imagine your culture of reporting, why are the frontline employees that absolutely know where serious things are? They never come to work to be injured or harmed.
Right.
Why are they filling that out like that? Why are they reporting on paint chips? Because no one's reading it. No one's looking at it. So the environment around compliance, just making sure one hazard ID, we got one, check, is actually creating a complacent culture that's not concerned about finding serious risk.
Well, it's actually eroding our programs as we pencil whip workers into doing these sorts of things. And it really, it begs a pretty serious question here, because workers don't come to work to be seriously injured or killed. So they should be telling us about things that can do that to them or their coworkers, but they don't. They're telling us about things that are really, kind of pointless. They're low risk. What industry is doing that with organizations are saying, well, I got 24,000 of these, so we must be good. And we get so many of them, there's so much noise, they're not actually looking inside of those things to say what they're saying. And if you go back and you look at them, you'll find that between 1% and 3% of them are things that we would say are really, really serious. The rest of them are like what Jason said. They're sometimes they're a joke. Like, don't stand downwind of Jason because he hasn't bathed in weeks.
Right.
Well, and the best part, and then guess who signs off on that? If I'm the manager, Jason literally has signed off on it. So that's their culture.
And workers tell us that. They say, you know, it's a joke. I had one worker say to me, you know, put a big red box on these forms and stuff, yes, because if you see something written in there, pay attention to it. But nobody's looking. So that further erodes the program, because when they do tell us about stuff that can cause serious harm, nobody's looking, you don't respond back, they think nobody cares.
So we discovered a big gap. All these companies, they all care about safety. It is their number one core value. Every annual report, you walk into any building, it's on the wall. Safety is their number one core value. So it's good thinking. But you go to the front lines, or we talk to the frontline workers, and you say, hey, do you believe in your core value? And there's a massive gap, a total disconnect. They say, we don't live by those core values.
Yeah, sorry, Jason, the disconnect between the guys in the suits, the guys in the top, and the people in the boots on the ground is enormous. We ask this question all the time. You know, if workers didn't have to attend a toolbox, there's no incentive, there's no punishment for them attending, you know, what percentage do you think would actually attend? And our senior executives are saying, well, it's you know, between 75 and 80 and 90% or 100%. And the workers go, I'm not attending. There's no value. Right. We're not going to do that. It's just this massive disconnect between the two levels, and we got to bring them together.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, we're measuring stuff as part of our safety programs, like the paint chips or the leading indicators, but it's the wrong thing, and it's too much of the wrong thing, and it actually drowns out the more serious things. So you guys have come up with a program or a way to measure the bigger picture.
Correct.
Is that right?
And that's really what we need, Adam. We need a new set of performance measures. And there's lots of science behind this right now, that we know most of our measures aren't reliable because they're of such low quality. And some of our measures, like total recordable incident rates, are not an indication of safety. They're not valid. So we needed a different approach that actually measures the process of creating safety. You know, and really takes the Pareto principle. What are the few vital behaviors that we need to have out there that's going to achieve, you know, remarkable results? And we focused on those.
So yeah, we didn't make it up either. This goes back. There's a lot of science on this. If you look at the airline industry, you go back to the airline industry in the 60s. They used to crash actually quite a lot. And if we still flew planes today like we did in the 60s, there would be one crash a day.
Wow.
But they actually got together, and they have a lot of compliance, a lot of check the box rules that we love as, you know, as passengers. But they realized that only made up 15% of their entire environment and their culture. The 85% was social factors, their true culture. And so what we ended up doing is looking at, for example, they have this, how well they find risk. They have a preoccupation with failure, and how they create situational awareness. So my buddy, Captain Ben, is a pilot, and he understands this instantly, because he's like, I'm allowed to report any potential bad news immediately with no fear of repercussion. So think about that when you start that environment, what that kind of creates when you can report that kind of information.
Interesting. So if I take that lesson from the airline industry and I take it over to construction or energy or wherever, what that means is that all these leading indicators that we're measuring are only telling us 15% of the story.
Well, in some cases, when we look at our core audits and that type of thing, yeah, it's only telling us a small part of what that is. When it's because it's a process, Adam. So we get the proactive reporting, then we have to do things. We have to learn from it, and we have to put in fixes that go, which goes back to our operations. Really what we want to do is, within organizations, within industries, we want to create a safety culture that integrates prevention, you know, into everyday work, much like commercial airlines and like nuclear industries, which are high reliability organizations with it. If we can do that, this is truly remarkable. There's no difference in what we're talking about between an airline and really construction. But in the airlines, and as Jason was saying, you know, today you can get on a plane every day. It would take over 54,700 years before you'd be involved in a fatal plane crash. They are that safe. Can you imagine if we could do that in construction or oil and gas or transportation? Like, even go 100 years without a serious incident. Geez, 25 years without that would be truly remarkable. But when we look at airlines, really the difference is they have to do it, because if we're having 3 or 4 plane crashes a week, you know, 2,000 people dying.
Sure, it's very public. very,
You wouldn't fly.
yeah.
Right. So it's existential to them. Plus, they're highly regulated. What we want to do is, without having to bring the highly regulated side, is to say, can we not bring these same principles of mindfulness and organizational learning and sensitive operations that the airlines have as HROs and apply it to industry today?
I love that. And you guys have some really interesting stories of this applied in real life. Thanks so much, guys. But before we go, if somebody watches this and is super curious or interested, how do they get a hold of you guys?
Intactix.ca.
Okay.
And there's an info form, you can fill it there, that come right to us.
Next time, we're going to talk about these actual stories and practical application of this. So I'm really excited for that. So stay tuned, and thank you guys for coming.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for having us.